scope of practice can vary a little bit. Where are you thinking about going?
Oh, I don't know. I was just like
Anywhere.
Hawaii.
Okay, Hawaii's pretty good. And there's definitely a bunch of docks in Hawaii. Who's this oncologist and skin guy out there? Like in Hawaii. Awesome. Other people thinking about going to the States? Any ideas about where? California.
California and or
Okay, yeah, all regulated, so far that's not too much of an issue in terms of scope of practice. Sean, you and I talked about that, right? But yeah, in particular, if you guys are thinking about that kind of stuff, have questions about that now, I'd be happy to speak with you guys on more of a one-on-one basis. Any other questions while we're at it? House cleaning stuff? All right, are you guys excited? I'm excited because I get to introduce you to my friend and colleague, Christian Dye. One of the things, I first met Christian Dye when my wife and I were going through marriage prep classes. So I met Christian through our church and went through, I guess it was several weekends that we had to go for marriage prep classes. And there was a financial segment and Christian was the presenter there. And at that point, it was a really great opportunity for us to be talking about our finances as a couple. It's something I certainly recommend. But what I really appreciated about Christian's approach was that, when we think of how we practice as healthcare practitioners, it's very education focused, right? It's about teaching in many cases. It's not really about curing. I like to say a lot about is that we don't really cure. I don't like that word really that much. But what we do is we empower people by giving them the education and the knowledge that they need to make those decisions. That's a big part of how Christian approaches his work as a financial advisor as well. So since then, Christian's also managed all of our personal finances, given us a lot of advice over the years. And he also manages our insurance portfolio. So when we're talking about being self-employed, looking at our life and disability and critical illness, those are portfolios that Christian manages for us as well. He's got his own private practice downtown as well. But today he's going to be here really doing what he does best, and that's sharing the information that you guys need to start thinking about and understanding about things like debt and taxes and looking at purchases in the future like cars and houses and things like that. He's super open to questions, but I will let Christian kind of take the floor from there. So please welcome my friend Christian Dye.
All right. Don't worry, you're going to give me a stronger applause at the end. So first of all, put this in. My background is not only in finance, but it's actually also in math. So we're going to be doing some math today as well. But it's the good kind of math. It's the one that's actually relevant to you guys over here. One of the things that I want you guys to do really, really quickly is Jason had me talking to the fourth years, and I think next year you'll see me again for a nice big long session. So what I did is I took a bunch of topics, and I thought, what's most relevant right before you finish? And what's most relevant in general. I took the ones in general and put them today, and the ones most relevant and put them next year, okay? So, but right now, one thing, whenever I do a talk, I always like to make sure that people are getting kind of what a question was being answered, what they were hoping to get answered. So my talk today is just on basic financial plan, but then I'm going to dig in really, really deep with cars and homes. Really deep. Because those are probably the two biggest purchases you're going to make. The cars, you'll consistently make them. And the home, you'll make them once, twice, 3 times maybe in your lifetime. Then I'm going to talk about really briefly about budgeting, taxes, and insurance. Okay? But if just staying around these topics over here, I just want you to think for about 10, 20 seconds and think, hey, I really hope he touches on this topic because I've got a question for him or there's something I kind of wanted to figure out. So think about that for a second, and I'm going to write it down. Because if I finish the talk and I haven't actually hit it, then I'll address it. That way I know that everybody kind of got what they were thinking of over here. Okay, so is there something that somebody would say they're kind of a question that they're hoping that I touch on based off of the topics on here right now? Financial plan, cars, homes, budgeting, taxes, insurance. Nothing jumps out to anyone? Yes?
I'd be curious to know your thoughts on purchasing a home versus renting and investing your money elsewhere and like what.
Purchasing versus renting. Fantastic. I believe I do address it in here, but I'll make sure I highlight it. Was there another question that someone was hoping that they'd really like to hear? Yeah.
Like mutual funds.
Investing. Are you thinking at this stage or after you finish?
At this stage.
Okay. Okay. I know actually I go into that in the fourth year talk, but I'll address a little bit here. Is there anybody else? Yeah.
Assuming if we have a financial advisor, they might know these things, but taxes, like tax breaks, tax holes or loops, like things like that we need to, as professionals, look out for to save money on taxes.
Sure. That's not a huge part of this talk or the next one, but I'll if I could, I do have a couple, and I'll hit. Any final ones? Okay, if there are any more, there is going to be a break at some point over here, okay? So I'll give you guys my background a little bit. A lot of letters behind my name. I did a lot of schooling, just like I'm sure you guys have done a lot of schooling. But essentially, a lot of it revolves around, I did my undergrad in mathematics, and then I did an education degree as well as a finance degree in finance and marketing, my MBA. I have a financial practice, but I like to teach as much as I possibly can. And right now what I do is I teach a lot through UBC, through their graduating classes, dentistry, medicine, and things of that sort. So I'm used to being in front of an audience, and I'm also trying to give my expertise as much as possible to keep people engaged, okay? So what I'm going to do to keep you guys engaged over here is I'll often ask you questions. I'll have you guys discuss in partners, and then we'll sort of have an interaction. Is that okay? I'll do my best to try to keep you guys off your cell phones and off your laptops and distracted and things of that sort. What I find is that when you multitask, you actually do two things very, very poorly. So I'd rather have you guys do one thing very, very well, and then switch and do whatever you need to do during the break or whatnot. Is that okay? Okay, so first thing I want to do is I want to show you this. In the MBA, we call this the success quadrant. And the way I'm going to explain it is like this. So I'm going to explain each of the quadrants, and then I'm going to ask you guys a question, okay? So here it is. Right now, everything that you've done in the last 1 week could be put in one of the quadrants. Okay, you got to figure out which is your quadrant. So if you're dealing with an activity that is highly urgent and highly important, you're a quadrant 1 person. Everyone does something in a little bit in each of them. So a good example of this is if your taxes are due tomorrow and you're spending all night working on them today. That is very, very important, and it's very, very urgent. Quadrant 2 is if your taxes were due or if there was a big assignment due, but it wasn't due for another 3 weeks from now, but you were working on it today, then you're on quadrant 2. Because it's very important, it's not very urgent. Quadrant 3 is if something is very, very urgent, but the importance is very, very low. Let's say that the Bay is having a 1-day sale today, and it ends at 4 o'clock, and you prioritize this. Well, that is very urgent, it's just not very important. And the last one over here is something that is very, very low urgency, very low importance, such as the new season of House of Cards has come on Netflix. So I'm going to spend the majority of the day watching this new season, even though it's available to me at any time. Low urgency, low importance. Does that make sense? What I want to do is I want to say this. The most successful people in any industry will spend the majority of their time in one of these quadrants. That's called the success quadrant. Take 30 seconds to talk to your partner and just say, what do you think the success quadrant is? Go ahead. 30 seconds. Okay, I'll just put it there. Okay. Any volunteers for the success quadrant? Two. Two is correct. And this is fantastic for you guys being healthcare professionals, okay? Now, we've identified it's 2, but that doesn't mean you're living in 2, though, right? It just means we know what 2 is. And here's the argument over here. In business, and I'm a bit of a business guy over here, I do business development consulting with small companies. And I say a company, a business, or any individual, if you're not living in 2, you must be living in 1, 3, or 4. Okay? And if you're living in 1, 3, or 4, you'll eventually end up in 1. And 1 is the worst place to be. Okay? Okay, and for health, you guys are in healthcare. I'll give you an example. If someone is talking to a patient and they've just had a second heart attack, they're completely overweight, they've got terrible cholesterol, everything is bad, they never work out, you might tell them, you need to change your diet, you need to start exercising, or there's a good chance you might die soon. Well, guess what? They're in one. They're dealing with something that's incredibly urgent and something that's incredibly important. If you are in your 20s, you eat well, you exercise regularly, and you watch and control your weight, well, you're in 2. You're dealing with something that's incredibly important. It's not urgent. Okay? Finances is the same thing. If you are someone who is already thinking about saving, if you're somebody who's already very, very conscious about either buying a home or saving for retirement or dealing with your taxes or investing, well, guess what? You're quadrant 2, because that's not urgent. You're very, very far away from retirement, okay? And you can continue to live your life at a reasonable pace without any sense of urgency of going bankrupt or running out of money. But by being a quadrant 2 person, remember, if you're not quadrant 2, you'll eventually end up in 1. Because the bills will be due, or you'll hit a point where you realize you don't have enough time to save up for retirement, or you'll get disabled, but you didn't have any disability insurance. It's kind of like a car. Sometimes people, their car will break down because they didn't put oil in it for the last 7 months, and then they got to deal, they never changed the tires, and they never did all these other things. So, of course, they're living in 1. They're dealing with things that are massively urgent, okay? So what I'm going to try to explain is why you got to stay away from trying to be a quadrant 1 person in all of the areas of your life. So here, what is a financial plan? A lot of people think a financial plan is something for someone who is much older, someone with money. It's not. It's just a plan. As a student, you should have a plan. You should know how much debt you're going to finish with. You should know if the amount of money that you're spending is actually the correct amount that you should be spending. Okay. So the reason why I show an airplane is because an airplane is off course about 98% of the time that it's in the air. It's constantly off course. But it communicates with the ground, and it has instruments to constantly keep putting it back on course. Okay? So what it means is it constantly needs to be readjusted. And I just want you to think, if an airplane didn't communicate with all of the tools it has, as well as the people on the ground, and it just took off heading in the right direction, but if it was 98% off course, and eventually it ran out of fuel and it had to land, what's the probability it would land where it needed to land? Highly, highly unlikely. Highly unlikely. It's the exact same thing with a financial plan. Okay. So I often show this over here. Okay, if I said right now, if I gave a multiple choice and I said that, what is your greatest financial goal? Right now, your greatest financial goal. And if I only gave you 2 options, and here are the 2 options. A, to be rich, or B, to be perceived as being rich. Okay? If those were the only 2 options, which one would you choose? Okay? So a lot of people have said, Christian, I'd rather be wealthy. I'd rather be rich. But if that's true, then you need to dissect to see what you're doing with your money and what you'll be doing once you graduate. Okay? Because if the priority is vacations, so you could post on Facebook, if it's nice new car, if it's, fancy house that maybe you might not even be able to afford, if it's Yaletown restaurants every Friday night and Saturday night and things of that sort, you got to remember, I know so many people where they think they want that, but all of their actions are showing this over here. Okay? Especially if you're finishing with high loans, especially if you're finishing with all of these different things. So what I'm trying to show over here is give you that grim reality, because when I deal with a client and I ask them this question, if they say this, then I'll challenge them on their behavior to say, is the behavior that you're doing right now trying to do this or trying to do this? Which of the 2 is it trying to do? Okay? So here, there's one formula, and here's the math guy in me coming out a little bit. Maybe you guys have seen this formula before. What is the one financial formula you must truly understand to become wealthy? Okay? The one formula you must truly understand to become wealthy. And this is the formula over here. It's the compound interest formula. And this is what the graph looks like on this formula. So what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to dissect this formula, and then I'm going to have you guys discuss what's the most important variable. So A stands for the final amount of money we end up with. P stands for the principal amount, the starting amount of money we have. R stands for the rate of interest that we're getting on our investments. And T stands for time. Okay? Those are three variables: the principal amount, the rate, and the time. I want you to discuss with your partner what you think is the most important variable to create wealth out of the three. Is it the principal, the rate, or the time? Go ahead. Talk to your partner really quickly. What do you think is the most important variable? Okay, let's gather it back. Any volunteers, what do they think is the most important variable? Time? Why time?
Because it has the biggest influence on that equation.
It has the biggest influence because where is it located?
That's like how.
It's in the exponent. It's in the exponent. So right now, if you were to ask someone, in order to become really wealthy, what do I need? And if they said, well, you need a lot of money, then they're saying you need to start with a lot of money. They would say P is the most important variable. And if somebody said, well, what you need is you need a really good investment. So what they're saying is you need to get a really good rate of return. But what you guys have realized by understanding this equation now is what you actually need is just a lot of time, an enormous amount of time. So if we take a look at this, does anyone know the name of this curve? Exponential. Good. Good. I got a math person in here. All right. So take a look at the first, and then maybe we'll do this in blocks of 5 years over here. Take a look at the first 5, 10, 15 years over here. What do you notice about the growth? Very, very slow. So if you think about what's the first 10 years look like versus what's the last 10 years. The last 10 years goes from here and then goes up to about there. What do you notice about the last 10 years? It's all the growth. It's all the growth. So if you said, usually if you had 40 years to invest, your money would double inside the last 10 years. Okay? So think about that for a second. If you had 40 years to invest, your money doubles in the last 10. So, well, that's no problem. We just need an extra 10 years then, right? The problem is you can't get an extra 10 years because you're counting backwards from when you decide to retire or when you decide to pass away, right? You don't get extra time. The only way to get the extra 10 years is to do what? You have to start 10 years earlier, right? It's the only way to get it. So the reason why I show this over here is when someone over there quickly asked, what should we do about investing, Christian? Because we'll have student loans as well. You guys should have student loans. My answer is usually the same. Just start. Just start. It's kind of like saying this, and I keep going back to the analogy of exercise. If somebody said, I'm in school, I'm really, really, really busy in school, like crazy busy in school. When should I start exercising? Probably when I finish my 4-year program. I should start exercising when I finish my 4-year program because I'll have more time, right? Is that a good or a bad idea? But you won't have the habit anymore. That's the problem. And once you finish, you'll actually be twice as busy. And then once you have a family, you'll be 5 times as busy. The best time to start is always right now. But I can only contribute so little. I'm so swamped with school, I can only exercise maybe an hour or 2 a week. Great. Just start. Or I could only exercise maybe 10 minutes a day. Perfect. Just start. It's the same thing with money. To just start, because when you start exercising, you actually start learning about what should I exercise, how should I exercise. When you start investing, you learn the same thing. What should I invest in? How should I invest? Yep. We're slowly going to get there. So it'll come to the question. The question was this: yeah, we start investing, but in what? In what? And there's a quick answer. So it's not in this presentation. It's the one I give the 4th years. Where do I invest in? And I say RSPs, TFSAs, paying down your loans, non-registered funds, and the answer is always the same. It depends. It's like saying, hey, I want to start exercising. What should I start exercising? It depends. So what you'd want to do is every scenario is different. So you'd want to figure out that scenario, okay? Because it would depend. Let's say you had a partner or a spouse, and you consider yourself household income. Let's say you were renting, except you had enough dual income to come up with a down payment. If you prioritize the down payment, that might be the solution. And if that was the solution, I'd probably say TFSA. Let's say you and your partner already own a condo, and it's already building a lot of equity, and you have no pension, either of you. I might say RRSP. So it'll depend on every single scenario, okay? But we understand the formula. We're all excited about math, right? We want more math? All right, trust me, you're going to get it. Okay, so I give this talk over here about this idea of rich versus poor thinking. And when you guys are in fourth year, you'll get the same thing. Because people who think rich and people who think poor, there is a common trend. And they've done tons of studies on this, tons and tons of studies on how rich people think and how poor people think, okay? And we're not talking about third world poor. We're talking about first world, yet some end up poor and some end up rich, even though they have the exact same conditions, okay? So I'm going to give you guys Dr. Rich rule number 1. So for the extremely rich, what commonality do they all have? And these are people who are all self-made rich. Okay? So here, Dr. Poor will be very concerned about income. Okay, so there's one rookie mistake. Always concerned about income. How much money do I make? How does that apply to you guys over here? You guys will be making decisions like, and I thought I heard it at the beginning, I'm thinking of moving to the U.S., maybe because you can make more money. Or I'm thinking of moving to the Okanagan. Or I'm thinking of moving up north because I think I can make more money. Or I'm thinking of maybe specializing in this with my naturopathic practice because I think I could make more money. You're chasing income. Now, you don't want to chase income. This is what you want to chase. Income ratio. You want to chase the ratio, not the income. So what is the difference between income and income ratio? Again, with a math formula, okay? It's a simple one, though. You just take your expenses and you divide it by your income. Now, here, we're going to use gross income. And here, what counts as expenses? Taxes, your living expenses, your mortgage, your rent, your car, everything. What isn't counted as expenses? Your loan payback, the amount you're chipping away at your loans, the investment money that you're putting away, savings, and any charity. That is not counted in the expenses. So if you took all of your expenses and divided by your gross income, you'll have a percentage. That's what you want to chase. You want that number to be as low as possible. As low as possible. So if you said, hey, I'm going to move out to the Okanagan, there's a practice out there that's offering me a job. I'm going to move out there. I'll rent for this. I got to buy a new 4x4. I got to do it like you gotta, and then my family's here, so I got to fly back and forth probably 3-4 times a year. Okay, do it for the entire year and come up with the ratio. And then let's say there's a practice locally where you don't make quite as much money, but you're able to live rent-free. With your partner or your parents or something of that, do the ratio again. You want to chase the ratio. You don't want to chase the income. What you might find is that you're making more but saving less. And so here, if you had an income ratio of 60%, that means you have 40% of your income to pay back loans or to invest. Okay? So a common question is this: what's a good ratio, Christian? What's a good ratio? The ratio also depends. If you said, I'm married, I've got 2 kids, we're living in Vancouver right now, and we did your activity, Christian, with your Excel sheet, and we've got a ratio of 80%. I would say that is fantastic. I would say that's an awesome ratio to have in your situation. If you said, Christian, I did my numbers as well, I'm also 80%. I live at home, I have no expenses, I don't have a car, all this other stuff. I said, that's a terrible ratio. That's a terrible ratio. If you're living at home, no expenses, your ratio should be like 30%. you know, 40%, 50% tops. So here, what Jason, did they have the Excel sheet or?
Yeah, but yes.
Okay, so this Excel sheet, I wrote this sheet, I give it to a lot of my clients, and it looks like this. You would enter in household income, sort of you and your partner. If you have more than multiple sources of income, you just keep, you know, using Excel, add to these lines. And what you're trying to do is saying, this is all the money coming in. Now here, if you know your tax rate, you would enter it in there. If you don't, you'd have to estimate it, wait for a full tax cycle, and then go backwards and then enter that number in there. You would enter in all of your expenses here, and then it'll populate the whole sheet, okay? Now the one nice thing I like about the sheet is it tells you the percentages of where all your money is going, and it also calculates the income ratio for you, okay? So if you figure out, okay, this is my income ratio, because there's a bunch of things that haven't been calculated, such as the investments, the loans, and things of that sort. Okay, so very, very useful tool. Now the other thing I like about the sheet is this, the cash flow. You can check to see if you're positive or negative. Now, if you guys aren't, when you start working, your income won't be steady. It'll go up and down, up and down. But after a year or 2 years, it'll start to stabilize. So what you could do is you could estimate what you're making for the year, okay? And then it'll populate it. And then as the months go by, you would just change the amount of income that you have in each of the months. And then you could start to see what it looks like. So here it would look at cash flow. Now, cash flow for the year is an important number. And the reason is because, let's say you and your partner, let's say your partner is a realtor, for example, and their income like fluctuates really, really heavily. Let's say come September, October, that's when there's a lot of business. They're paid a few months later, so that they're flushed with money in January. So January, they're showing heavy cash flow. But summer is slow, winter is slow, and then you could be deceived by thinking, you know, somebody phones you up and says, hey, us and our friends are all going to Mexico, and we want you to come. And it's January, and we're planning for March, spring break. Says, well, how much are the tickets? They're like $2,000 per person, so it's $4,000. You look at your bank account, there's 16 grand in there. They're like, yeah, we're in. But if you go through this activity without spending the trip, you might realize you're just break even for the year. The money is already allocated and spent. So then by doing this activity, you said, we can't go. Even though we have 16 grand in the bank, this money is going to be allocated. It's going to be allocated. Okay, so Jason is giving you guys access to this. It's one of the things that you should absolutely do. Okay, so here are some current facts over here. BC residents actually have the highest consumer debt in Canada, and you guys are going to be part of that. Can anybody tell me why you think BC has such high consumer debt?
Cost of living.
Cost of living, and what's driving up our cost of living? Well, the housing. You're linking it to the housing. So we're actually spending the same amount as the rest of the province, but the problem is our cost of living is so much higher, and our income is not even average. Our income is not even average for Canada. We're below the average of Canadian, but our cost of living is so high. But we still are going out to restaurants, we're still going on vacation, we're still buying clothes. That's what's driving all the consumer debt, okay? 43% of the people in Canada spend more than they earn. 27%, that's 1 in 3 people, have no savings at all in Canada. Okay? Canadian statistics show the rich are getting richer and the middle class are getting poorer. Okay? Where in the world do you have no middle class? You just have rich and poor. Does anybody know? Developing countries. Developing countries, there's no middle. You've got rich, extremely rich, and you've got extremely poor. Okay? And why am I saying that Canadian statistics show that we are starting to model that? Because now you're having young, educated couples, let's say the engineer who marries the nurse, and they could barely afford a 1-bedroom condo. And then they start spending, and they have no savings. It's all going straight out the window, right? And on the flip side over here, you have other people who are getting aggressively richer. And the only reason why they're getting, trust me, I'm not against those people. I like those people. Those people are me and my clients. The only reason why they're getting aggressively richer is because they have more financial knowledge. They have more financial knowledge. And the reason why I say that over here is because right now there are people who are immigrating to this country, which is a wonderful thing, but they know how to make money from where they came from. And they're coming here with no money at all. They either are fleeing a communist country or fleeing whatever, but give them 10 years, give them 20 years, they'll have all of their wealth back. Why? They've got the knowledge. They'll know what to do. They'll know how to start a business. They'll know how to save. They'll know how to invest. It's the knowledge. That's the problem. All the opportunities are here for all of us. The ability to make money in the markets, the ability to make money in real estate, and I'm living proof of that. I came from poor family, immigrant family. I own multiple pieces of real estate right now. I've got multiple degrees. But it's not because it's not because I'm smart. That's definitely not the reason. It's just because I was given the correct opportunities in this country, and I took advantage of those opportunities, such as education, right? I was given the opportunity to be able to save and invest, so I saved and I invested, okay? So I'm looking at both sides of the coin over here and saying all of the opportunities are here, so we can't model the poor thinking. Can't model poor thinking, okay? So here I'm going to talk a little bit more about this poor thinking, okay? So why is there this separation over here between rich and poor? It's because of the financial decisions that are being made. Okay? So now I'm going to talk about structuring finances. So I kind of use a football analogy. You have offense, you got defense. And if anyone's a football fan over here, what type of teams tend to win more games? Strong offense or strong defense? Does anybody know? Defense. Strong defense tends to win games. Okay? So right now I want to harp on this on a couple places that I want you guys to be more defensive with your finances. And here's where I pick on two areas. And if we could just deal with these two areas in our lifetime, you'll avoid making a lot of mistakes. The first one is the car. First one is the car. Okay? The reason why I like the car is because for some of you, you might not be purchasing a home for quite a few more years, but you literally might be purchasing a car this year or this month or next year or the next 2 years. But for sure, unless, and it's right now, if you don't drive a car and you say, Christian, I'm green, I will never ever own a car, you just save yourself hundreds of dollars per month for the rest of your life. That's fantastic. And if you guys can go 2-car family down to 1-car family, hundreds of dollars, hundreds. A car is an aggressively expensive asset, which adds no value except for the fact that it brings you from one place to another. So I want to pick on the car and then I want to pick on the house, okay? Okay, so again with the multiple choice, are we ready? What is the greatest monthly cost for a fully paid vehicle? Gas, insurance, maintenance, tickets and parking, or other. Now, it's a fully paid vehicle. You and your partner talk, another 30 seconds. Let's see what you guys think this one is. Is that okay? Go ahead. Jason, is everyone online, by the way? Everyone's got Wi-Fi. Everyone's online. Okay, good. Okay. Slow. It's okay. They could use their phones too, right? Yeah. All right, let's gather it around. Now we're talking. Okay. Let's see a show of hands. How many people think it's gas? Perfect. About how much do you think a gas bill is, or your gas bill per month?
Say like 150 to 2.
150 to 2.
If you're driving.
Okay. What kind of vehicle is that?
I don't know.
That is about the average cost, but would you say that's an expensive gas bill or cheap gas bill? Cheap. Who's got an expensive gas bill? What do you got?
Like $400 a month.
$400 a month. And what is that vehicle?
Dodge Nitro.
Okay. What type of vehicle is going to cause the gas bill to go higher? Truck, sports car, SUV, you know. And so gas, so knowing that, how many people here don't own a vehicle right now? Fantastic. This is a very, very good lesson. If you could keep not owning it, that's even a better lesson. But at some point, people will buy a vehicle. So at some point, most people buy a vehicle. Okay, so here, gas isn't the correct answer, but it is an expensive expense. How many people think it's insurance? Okay, approximately how much is insurance per month or per year?
I don't know. I've never owned a vehicle.
What do you think?
Like $2,200 a year.
$2,200 a year. Okay, $2,200 a year. That there is almost $2,200 a year. That's almost $200 a month then. Almost $200 a month. Is that okay? What's does anybody have a really expensive insurance? How much is yours?
Well, if we moved our insurance to BC from Alberta, it would go to I think $4,000
$4,000 for the year? For two vehicles. Okay, it must be really cheap in Alberta.
like $1,000. I think we pay less than $2,000 for the two vehicles in Alberta.
Oh wow, very, very cheap. Very cheap. Yep.
Mine was like just about $3,000 for one car moving from the States. I'm from the States originally, so I didn't have a driver.
Sure. So 3,000, we're at about $250 a month now. Okay. Yeah.
If someone's had an accident, then their insurance is going to be like
Skyrocket, especially if they're young.
yeah.
Especially if they're young. So insurance is expensive. What's going to drive the number up? The newer the vehicle, the more expensive it'll be. The bigger the vehicle, the fancier the vehicle, the younger the driver, and if there's any accidents. That thing could be really, really high, 300, 400, 500 a month. And that is not the correct answer. That is not the correct answer. Maintenance? One person put their hand up. If you put your hand up for maintenance, we got a different story over here. Maybe you need a different vehicle. Because if your maintenance cost is breaching 300, 400, 500 per month on average every single month, I think it's time to get rid of that car. Maybe it's a little bit too old. So it's not maintenance. Tickets and parking? If you're saying yes to this, we've got another problem as well. Breaching. Yes. I'm looking at a monthly average for the year. Okay. The answer is other. The answer is other. For the majority of vehicles out there, the greatest monthly expense for a fully paid vehicle is other. Does anybody know what the other is? Now that we know it's not any of these.
Like detailing?
No. Wow, that's amazing. Detail 400. Wow. You are high maintenance. Wow. All right, here's the answer.
Oh, parking. I was thinking like at work and then at home and then all places.
Okay, here's the correct answer. It's depreciation. Oh, tricked us again. Okay, so we're going to talk about depreciation. It's the hidden cost. So here, almost every single vehicle will have a greater depreciation rate than all of these numbers. There are a couple that won't if it's a very, very old car. Okay? So I'll give you an idea. We're going to do a little bit of math on depreciation over here. Okay? I'll pick on a BMW right now. Let's say a brand new BMW costs about $60,000. Is that okay? Does anyone know how much the same vehicle, but 5 years old, how much this one costs? Same vehicle, 5 years old? 30? 30? Okay. 26. Okay. So eventually when you have a car, you have to eventually either sell it or it'll die on you. So if you have it you're not going to hold a car for the rest of your life. When you buy it, you're going to sell it. Or when you buy it, you're going to drive it until it dies. Okay? One of the two things are going to happen, but you're going to outlive your car. Okay? Depreciation is what's the cost difference in the middle. So here we go. The math is pretty simple. Take $60,000 minus $26,000, I get $34,000. I divide it by 5 years, then I divide it by 12 months. About $600 a month on the depreciation. Okay? And remember, you don't get any of this money back. Okay? This is how the car is depreciating rapidly. So what type of cars would you say depreciate the fastest? Nice cars and new cars. Nice cars and new cars depreciate the fastest. If you took a look at a brand new, I'll pick on any car, a Mercedes. If you took a look at a brand new Mercedes 2018, and then you took a look at a Mercedes, same model, 2017, you know what the difference is in looks? Almost nothing. Do you know what the difference is in price? At least 13 grand, at least. So I want you now to imagine if you took a look at a nice car, maybe something else, a nice Mazda 3, took a look at a 2-year-old version, and then took a look at a 4-year-old version. 2-year-old version, a 4-year-old version. And let's just say for argument's sake, it had the exact same kilometers on it. Because one guy drove it a lot, and the other guy didn't drive it very much. So this guy's got, let's say, 50,000 kilometers, and the other guy also has 50,000 kilometers. Same model, same make, and they kept it in almost the same condition, and the two cars look almost identical. Do you know what the difference in price will be? At least 8 grand, at least. But let's talk about the quality of it, Christian. How does it look? They look the same. Let's talk about how many years I have left in it. They drove the same amount of kilometers. It should be about the same. What about the maintenance of it? It was on the road longer. Take it to a mechanic. Have him check it out and let him tell you. What I'm doing over here is I'm a money guy. I look to see where is the most value for my money. Okay? That's the way I invest my money. I look at assets in the same way, and I look at liabilities the same way. I have to purchase liabilities, such as cars. I have to. I got to get to work too. But what I do is I minimize it, and I said, where am I going to get the most bang for my buck? Okay. And if you take a look at people who are, I guess you might say, who end up with the least amount of assets, or the people who are, I guess you might almost say, even broke. And if you take a look at their car spending habits, it is not uncommon that you find they are buying brand new vehicles or leasing them continually throughout their lifetime. Renewing the lease, or buying new, and they go in this cycle. If you take a look, there was a book called The Millionaire Next Door by an American who surveyed over, I think, like 1,000 millionaires. And in your head, when you think of a millionaire, you're actually thinking of a billionaire. You're thinking yachts, and you're thinking planes, and you're thinking private jets. That's a billionaire. But when you think of a millionaire, it's usually someone who is self-made. It's usually someone who invested early. It's usually somebody who lives in a normal house. It's usually somebody who drives a used car, and invests heavily. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to model what self-made wealthy people do. Okay? Which car do you think has the smallest depreciation out there? I'm thinking even a brand new car. What vehicle has the smallest depreciation, even if it was bought brand new? The smallest compared to all the other ones. All right, I think I've heard it. Honda Civic. Toyota Camry will probably be second. Then back to Honda Accord, and then back to Toyota RAV4. Like Honda and Toyota are probably going to hold the top 8 spots for the slowest depreciating vehicle over here. You're looking at a depreciation rate of about 150 a month. About 150 a month. And whenever I get a vehicle, I always calculate the depreciation before I buy it, okay? And that's what you guys are about to learn, okay? So I'll give you guys an idea of what I'm about to show you over here, okay? I want you to think of a 5-year loan at 2%, $60,000 new vehicle. The value is $26,000 5 years later. okay? Now here, the payment is going to be about $1,052, and I'll show you how to calculate that. Okay? But the one thing I want to point out is this. Look at how nice that vehicle looks. That's a really, really good looking vehicle, right? And you deserve this vehicle because you worked hard for your 4 years. And when you graduate, you'll be making good money. You'll go to a car dealership and they'll say, what kind of car are you looking for? And you'll say, I'm not sure. What do you got? And they're going to show you that. And then they're going to say, where do you work and how much money do you make? And you're going to tell them. And then they're going to say, you qualify. You could afford this. Then you're going to do a bit of mental math in your head. You're going to say, I think I could afford this, right? Now I'm going to show you something else. Now I'm going to show you that. That is the Honda Civic. Look at this and look at this. There is absolutely nothing sexy about this at all, right? It's not going to turn any heads. No one's going to post this on Facebook. Look at my new car. No one's going to post that on Facebook, right? No one's going to take multiple pictures of this. No one's going to brag about this, okay? You're going to park this round the back, right? Not at the front. There won't be that detailing that you'll be doing. There won't be that much detailing on this one. You'll be doing the detailing on this one, not on this one, though. Okay? But what I want to do is I want to show you something very, very sexy about this car. Very sexy. It's the numbers, and I'll show it to you in a second. Okay? Now, this car over here, notice this. Why is this used car have so much of a higher interest rate than this car over here? Brand new cars always have low financing rates. Why? They know that the car is depreciating so much. Whereas this car over here, you probably, if you do it through the bank, you'll probably get 7%. If you do it through the dealership, they might do 7% or not finance it at all. And if you go through the bank, you'll probably get like a 6%. It's always higher, always higher. So in your head right away, you're going to say, well, I'd rather, and let's say forget 2%, 1%, sometimes 0%, 0% or 0.1%. 0.1% financing for 5 years and you're driving away in this. You're like, yeah, but Christian said I should buy a used vehicle. You check out a used vehicle, 6%. Well, I'd rather do 1% versus 6%, but let's understand the numbers. This vehicle over here is a $12,000 used vehicle, 5 years old, and when I sell it, it'll be worth about $6,000. Okay? The depreciation on this one obviously is going to be much lower, and the monthly payments on this guy is going to be much lower. Okay? So this is the math that I want to teach you. We learned something in finance called the opportunity cost. And the opportunity cost is, yes, you could afford this. Yes, you have the money. You've got the income to support this. If I take a look at this number versus this number, I'm going to give you 3 scenarios. In this one over here, I know you have $1,052, but I'm going to convince you to buy a used car instead at $252. What's the difference? $800. The $800 is the opportunity cost. If I said, Christian, I can't do it. I can't do that bloody Civic. There's no way I could do it. Okay? At the very, very least, I'm going to encourage you to get a used BMW. Not a 2018, a 2014. Okay? It's still expensive, but it's not as expensive. If you were to do that, it'll cost you $452. You still have $600 to invest. Or we could bus pass it. I'll get a bus pass, $1,000 a month to invest. Okay, I'm just going to pick on the first guy over here. I'm just going to pick on the first guy. So what the opportunity cost now is, what is the opportunity cost worth in 5 years? What is it worth at retirement? Okay. So now what I want to do is I want to kind of teach you guys the math behind this. Okay, so can you guys take out that calculator on your phone? So now's the time we get to start learning. Okay. Take out the calculator. And if for some reason you don't have it or your phone's not working or whatever, just sit beside somebody who has it, just so at least we can follow along together. Is that okay? And if you've got it on your laptop, just do it on the laptop. But we're going to be doing a bunch of this math off of this. So it's very important because you guys have the opportunity to use your own numbers as well, okay? Okay, so first thing I want you to do is, if you got it there, I want you to click on the TVM calculator, top left. TVM stands for time value of money. And when we're in 4th year, we're going to be using this calculator again, so keep it in your phone. TVM, top left. Then, once you click that, I want you to hit the advanced button top right. So you want the advanced TVM calculator.
On the calculator sheet?
Yeah, yeah.
Download an app.
Okay. Does everybody go okay? If you're unsure, just work with a partner right now. Just work with a partner. So here, I'm going to teach you how to enter in these numbers. So the first one is the present value is 0. So the present value is 0 because we're not starting with any money. I'm taking the $800 that I didn't spend on the car and I'm investing it instead. Invested money always goes in as negative, so we got to put it as negative 800. Okay. Then the future value is what I'm looking for, so we're going to leave that one blank. Now, what rate are we getting? Short-term investment, you shouldn't try to be too risky in the markets. So we're going to try to get a 4%. And if you're dealing with an investment advisor, you just tell them, I need this money in the next 5 years over here, so don't be too risky with the money. So let's just put it in at 4%. Now here, the periods is 60. It's because we're contributing monthly for 5 years. So we're going to put it in as 60. Now we're going to compound this annually, and the rate is also annual. The rate is also annual. Is everyone with us? I hope my numbers match. There's a chance they might not match. Okay. Now I want you to hit future value. Now hit future value. Okay. Just hit the button. Did everybody get a number? Okay. This is the number I got. 53,000. Is that what you guys got? Okay. I'm not going to worry about the pennies. This is what I'm trying to show over here. When you graduate, yes, you could afford a brand new vehicle. They'll tell you you could afford a brand new vehicle. But what I'm showing you is the opportunity cost of not having a brand new vehicle. Yeah, but Christian, I need a vehicle. I know. That's why I showed you the Civic. I get it. You need a vehicle. You get a vehicle, but you had the money to get the brand new one. You take the difference, and now we're investing it in nothing sexy, just 4%. All the investment advisor got to do is hit 4%. And now I have 53 grand, okay? So now I'm going to say this. I'm going to take my 53,000, and what if I didn't even contribute to it? What if I said, okay, I've got to jump start on my investments, on my retirement? What if you then took these investments and put it in a long-term investments? And the long-term investment, we're going to put it at 8%, because now the investment advisor is doing a long-term balanced portfolio, is going to try to get you 8%. So now, this is the way we're going to enter it. Here, we're going to enter negative 53,039, okay? Because we're investing it as a present value, but we're not contributing any more to it. We're not going to add any more money. The future value, we're going to put at 0. Now the investment advisor is going to try to get you 8%. But we're going to do this for 35 years. This will be annual, and we're compounding it annually. Okay? So in the first stage of your life, you said, I need a car, and I'm telling you not to get a new one, even if you could afford a new one. Figure out how much that new car costs and get the used one instead. Take the difference of what you were going to put towards the new one, invest it instead. Okay, come retirement, I made some assumptions on how old you are, but let's say you got 35 more years of working after the 5 years, so 40 years of working. Basically, I'm taking a 25-year-old. I'm taking a 25-year-old, when they're 30, they've got 53 grand, and then they've got another 35 years to invest. Now hit the future value. Now hit the future value. 784 is what you have in retirement. 784. Has everybody got it? Now remember, were you contributing money for your whole life? No. You were only contributing money for the first 5 years. That's it. And did you have the money? Yeah, you were about to buy a brand new car. You actually had the money. But the knowledge of this is what it looks like this. So how much is the new car really worth? Is it worth 800 grand in retirement? Is it worth 50 grand in 5 years? 50 grand, that's a down payment on a home. That's a down payment right away. Now here, okay, just to blow your mind a little bit more, I'm a real estate guy, by the way. I like to invest in real estate. And and whenever I do invest in the markets or things like that, I just like really, really solid investments. I don't like to move the money. I like things that are solid that are going to grow over time. Keep your number at 784, okay? But change the rate at 10 and now hit future value. What number did you get?
1,500,000.
1,500,000. Now this will blow your mind even more, okay? Now change the number to 12. And what number do you have?
1,800,000.
Now you're playing where I play, because now we're talking real estate. We're talking investing in real estate, okay? Because the numbers get higher and higher and higher. The rates get higher because we're leveraging against really, really large assets over here. So here it's the knowledge of how come some people could come and doing the same job. You know, my first job was as a full-time high school teacher. There was a guy who never made more than 60 grand his whole life, and when he retired, he had 5 homes, and he had, I think, around $10 million. Wait a minute, weren't you in the same job as everybody else? Yes, but his knowledge was much higher. His knowledge was much, much higher. He was old school. He didn't even start teaching until he was his mid-30s. He was in the Navy for the first half of his life. But he was a smart guy. He just knew how to move the money. He knew how to invest. He was a conservative guy. Even in his retirement, he drove a used van. You know. So what I'm trying to show you is people just lack the numbers. They don't know how to work the numbers. You see, there's nothing sexy about this, right? But this is the sexy part. It's 5 years and I have 800 grand. Or it's 5 years of investing, by retirement I have 800 grand. Why? Because you have so much bloody time. It's the 35. It's the 35 that's helping you. That's what's kicking the number up. Yep.
Do you suggest pulling money out of like properties that you have and then investing?
Completely separate conversation, but that's exactly what I do. But you would really have to know what you're doing, because that's a dangerous game, because it could all domino. It'll all domino against you, and then it can basically wipe everything out. But if you know what you're doing, there's an actual word for that. It's called the Smith maneuver. The Smith maneuver actually teaches how to consistently, and that's what I learned real estate from my uncle, and he was an engineer. He probably made, I don't know, 100 grand a year. But I kept wondering, how did you retire with 20 properties in your early 60s when you immigrated to the country at the same time as my aunt and my mother? And he sat me down and he showed me. Right? The thing is, he showed me when I was 22, so I still had the years. I still had the time. Okay, now it's your turn a little bit. I think this is what we're going to do. We have to take a break, right? This is what we're going to do during the break. We're going to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, okay? During your break, you're going to research a car. I'm going to take 2 minutes to show you how to research the car on your phone, and if you're having trouble, I'll walk around during the break, okay? But you guys are going to figure out either the car you want to buy, the next car, maybe your household needs a car, maybe you're going to graduate and you're going to get a car, and there's a car you have in mind right now. We're going to figure out the depreciation rate, okay, of that car. So there's a couple websites. I'm going to run through them really quickly, and then I'm going to stop, and then I'm going to show you all the websites on one page, okay? So this is the way you should research a car from your computer. 1, you hit autotrader.ca. You type in your postal code. You type in the type of car that you want, and then you type in the range of the price. So I'm only showing you how to buy a used car. I'm not showing you how to buy a new car. I've never bought a new car in my whole life. Okay? So a used car, you'll hit the range. Okay? Then you'll write down, it'll give you the features of it. If you want to narrow it down to color or something like that, or the maximum year, you could do that as well. And then you're going to get a big list of cars. Then you're going to pick on one of the cars. And you're going to take a look at this car. And you're going to say, yeah, I think I like that car. This is the part we need from it. We need the details of the car. We need these little pieces, okay? Once you have this on your screen, screenshot it, save it somewhere, okay? So once you get the details of the car, then we're going to go to another website called VMR Canada, okay? When you're on VMR Canada, this is what I love about VMR Canada. It's a Canadian site. So it's not in US values, it's in Canadian values. You're going to go to the used car value on VMR, and now you're going to click on that, and then you're going to type in your car, the car you just picked. You're going to type in the make, the model, and the year, the series, and then you're going to get this screen. And they're going to say, well, which of these cars are we trying to compare? Then you're going to go back to the other one, and you're going to say, oh, I wanted the 335. So you'll have the details, so you'll be able to click that. Then when you click that, you'll click in the kilometers. When you click in the kilometers, you'll hit final value. And then it'll give you two numbers. The first number is the wholesale. The second number is the retail. Does everyone understand the difference between the two? Okay. Wholesale is what the dealership would buy it for. They said this is what it's worth, and this is how much we'll sell it for. Why do we need to understand the retail number? That's the going rate of the car. If it says 14,550 and it's being sold for 16,800, you know you've got wiggle room, because now you're not at an information disadvantage. Whenever you're a consumer of a car or a consumer of a home, you're at an information disadvantage. But with this, you are at an advantage. I know what this car is worth. Why is that important? Because you should know whether you're overpaying for it. What's the other advantage as well? On this screen it says PV. That means, I think, projected value. It should say FV, future value, but it'll say PV. If you click on that, it'll tell you how much your car will be worth in 5 years. We need that number. That's how we're going to figure out the depreciation. We're just going to assume we're selling it in 5 years. Okay. So that over there, well, they switched the site, then they changed it to FV. You see, this vehicle over here in 5 years will only be worth $11,000. You see, that's the number we're going to use. Okay. So right now, we're going to go on break. You guys are going to research a car. When we come back in, Jason says you guys like to take really short breaks, 2-3 minutes. Is that correct? That's what he told me. Okay. We'll go 15 minutes. We'll go 2:25. But at 2:25, when we come back, everyone's got a vehicle. Everyone checked out the future value of it. Do you got it? Okay. And then if you need help, I'll come and help you. And whoever was having trouble with the calculator, I could help them as well. Okay? So now let's go for a break. Yeah.
The depreciation, when you said the lowest was the Honda Civic,